Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players Podcast. This is our show for Tuesday, June 8th, our Belmont Stakes Day recap. I am your host, Peter Thomas Fornatal, with you from the Brooklyn bunker. And we have a man who got back to his traveling ways this weekend. He was here in New York, but he's back on the planet Texas. He is the People's Champion, Jonathan Kitchen. What's up, JK?
I'm always in rough shape after these Triple Crown races, getting back. And it didn't help that last night, like the highway that goes to my house was closed. So I had to go around, and then the exits were all closed. There's one lane. A 12-minute venture. It took me an hour and 10 minutes to get home. So that
sounds like Brooklyn. That sounds like me trying to get to the Belmont Stakes 18 miles away. It took me an hour and a half on Thursday. That was real fun.
Oh, yeah. So that wasn't great, but it was a fun time in New York. It was good to kind of be back out and at it again. We got a little taste of that Kentucky Derby week and again, Belmont. It was a lot of fun. Got to see a lot of people that we hadn't got to see in a while. It was like the first day of school kind of.
Definitely. And there's going to be a lot more to come this summer. Belmont Stakes betting challenge. You were on the sidelines, but we did have some friends competing. Marshall Graham, another big performance without wanting to give, at the risk of giving short shrift to the winner. Serious question for you. How far out are we from saying that Marshall and this live bank resume he's putting together could be right up there with Garrett Skiba as the greatest live bankroll player we've seen?
Yeah, I mean, with Garrett's retirement, and Marshall still participating, I think it's probably just a matter of time before the resumes stack up very well next to each other, if not already there. And that's no offense to Garrett at all.
No, like you said, he retired. He comes out of retirement once a year for the BCBC, and I suppose a deep run in there, and he could certainly be solidifying his challenge. But certainly of late, it feels like Marshall is high on the leaderboard or winning all of these contests. He's playing them all strategically when he's not going for it all and going for the win. Like in the Belmont contest, it's more related to what's going on with the prize pool than any idea. I mean, he's playing it correctly, not incorrectly, to come close and miss, which can happen sometimes in these contests. So it's pretty interesting stuff. I'm going to try to pull up the leaderboard. I should have done this before the show. Host fail. But any other thoughts on anything you saw in terms of the contest?
No, I mean, the only person I really noticed when I looked at the final thing was Marshall. I honestly,
Dan Mastari, who's been very, very good. His name was up there. I can't remember if he ended up in the top spot.
Frank Mastari won.
Oh, Frank won. I thought it was Dan. Okay,
no, Frank. Yeah. Oh, so I'm happy about that.
Talk about people who are building incredibly impressive resumes in tournaments. Tom Maloof second, Marshall Graham third, and then Tony Joe ending up in fourth position. It was a pretty darn impressive list of people playing in this contest. Short field, but a good field, and a contest that I am hoping. I think there is a path for it to become like the full-on major it should be. Hopefully, we'll have a chance to at some point work with our pals over there and get their contests even more prominence than they already have. But anytime you're putting up 10,000 and you're playing on one of racing's biggest days, short field or not, I'm tempted to call it a major.
Absolutely, and the racing obviously qualifies. The racing we'll talk about. You forget, how good the racing is. Belmont Stakes weekend, 8 grade ones. Obviously, I would imagine that some injuries and some other things in racing probably prevented those races from being some of the star-studded events we hoped for. The scratch obviously of Swiss Skydiver hurt. Monomoy Girl being on the sideline affected the field of the Ogden Phipps, but look, it's those days of racing. We get to see a lot of horses doing a lot of things that they might be doing for the first time with all those cutbacks from the 3-year-old races. And so it's still one of my favorite weekends of all year.
Well, let's start our racing part of the show with a discussion of this year's Belmont Stakes. Oh my goodness. I'll tell you where I watched from. It was kind of epic. So every year, I think I've told this story on the show before, but I'll typically spend half the day schmoozing in the clubhouse, garden terrace, wherever, but I'd like to keep it real. And they're different specific seats every year, but basically 4 seats way down in the grandstand where I first met you in person for the first time I'm pretty sure it was California Chrome's Belmont back in 2014. So you know the area I mean. And this year, a funny thing happened. So obviously, NYRA were doing what they could to get pull this event off, limited attendance or no, still logistically tricky. I had trouble finding an appropriate snack for Perrin about midway through the day. And where we were positioned, we were right above these barbecue pits. These amazing spots down on the apron where someday there will be an In the Money Media event. There will be a keg of beer. I will be finishing up food on the grill that I've done on the smoker the night before. It's going to be awesome whenever we do it, but didn't get it organized in time for this year's Belmont Stakes. And plus, I think those for Belmont Day, the pit lists are miles long. Anyway, the grilled hot dog right in front of us. I saw the look on Perrin's face. I was like, I'm not proud. I'm going to go down there and see if I can scam a hot dog off these people. And they were the nicest people in the world. The two people I met were Lamb and Tara. I explained the situation, and they were more than willing. I grabbed my hot dog, and they're like, no, that's not enough. They ended up making a whole plate with the grilled corn and burgers and chips and the whole 9 yards. And ended up making me. I will put this one on the Dad of the Year application, which I will leave out the time I made her go on the roller coaster with me. We have the photo with the G forces against her face. That one gets buried for the Dad of the Year application. But seriously, thank you to Lamb and Tara, and what a great crew of people down there. We ended up watching the race right there. Super exciting. I know I said we were getting to the racing part of it, and then I took us left. But that's what happens on the show. Anyway, have you ever been out in those pits? And do you think the idea of an In the Money event there at some point is a good one?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I never have been back there, though. But I'm always down anywhere.
It's like the hill. It's a bit like the hill, but you are like and I'll use it almost correctly, literally on the racetrack. And they invited us back, and that's where we watched the race. So it was tough because we didn't have much perspective, but I had the screen for the whole first part of the race. Right. So they're coming around the turn, and the way this pace shook out, and I could, how you can see the momentum of the moves when you're that close, and you're watching with your eyes instead of a screen. So turning in, my exact line was Essential Quality is going to win this race by 10 lengths. And then by the time they got in front of us, whatever that would have been a furlong later, I said, this Hot Rod Charlie isn't going away. And that's what it was, man. It was just an unbelievable stretch run, one that I think I'll remember with Rags and Curlin. Like, that's how exciting it was. And it was so cool to be down there. I always thought Essential Quality was getting there, but it was, from that perspective, but it was just, for me, super duper exciting. And it comes back, and I know you're like me in this regard, JK. You geek out a little bit more when it's a super exciting visual that also comes back with a big time figure. In this case, 109 on Bayer, I think 127 on Timeform US. I think we've seen quite possibly we've seen our race of the year. What did you think? Just give me your initial thoughts to this year's Belmont Stakes.
Yeah, honestly, the first thing that popped in my mind is how cool it was that Brad Cox kind of called his shot after Essential Quality made his first work. That's what that popped into my head because, I'm sure a lot of people after their first work, they go, oh, this is our Derby horse, and it doesn't work out. And I found that to be pretty cool when he had told that story on our airwaves about that being that first work. He said, that's our Belmont horse. And it turned out that was the case. It's also rewarding when you're looking at it from a handicapping standpoint. When I liked Essential Quality in the Derby. I thought he ran the best race given the trip that he got in the Derby, and then to come back and run a fast number and win the Belmont, it makes you feel like you were doing something right. You just got beat on the day, and that's always encouraging too. And I'm also one of those players that if I get beat in a pick 5, I want to still let the rest of it get hit because I want to see the ball go through the hoop. And so that was initially what popped into my head. The other thing was I'm glad I was being a little degenny and bet the horse to win after getting beat out of the pick 6, pick 5, and pick 4. And then that was also my last TV hit of the day. So I was always like, well, where can I get an adult beverage? Those were my initial thoughts as soon as they crossed the wire.
That's fantastic stuff. I'm trying to put it in historical context. You're like, where can I get a beer?
And I will tell you this, I'm super excited about the potential for what this Travers could look like. If you get a horse like Mandaloon, you get a horse like Essential Quality, Rombauer, Hot Rod Charlie, some other kind of progressive 3-year-old types that will eventually show up on that day. I think it could be a ton of fun, and have another shot at having, Midnight Bourbon as well. I'd imagine will be kind of back in the mix by then. Known Agenda. The list goes on. So that was another thought I thought is, one heck of a Travers we can start looking forward to.
It looks like it's going to be a very exciting summer with this crop. I love the idea that they really broke through on the clock as well. So this race certainly has to be a few things. Another just fun historical footnote: the idea that we had the same 1-2 from the Breeders' Cup Juvenile running 1-2 in the Belmont Stakes. I would have taken a very big number against that ever happening, just given the nature of the breed now and how tilted towards precocity it seems to be. Tappet having something to say about that, certainly. But that was a really cool footnote. Is that as extraordinary of a circumstance as I think it is?
Yeah, I think it's pretty crazy. I mean, you think of, like you mentioned, the precocity in the mile and a 16th versus the stamina and the third running of a Triple Crown race, and the mile and a half. And to think that you have the same two animals in those two spots, I agree with you. It is pretty interesting, and pretty surprising.
I can imagine our friend Sean Tugel and his colleagues over at Gainesway with their interest in owners' interest in Hot Rod Charlie and standing Tappet may have been doing jumping jacks and cartwheels through the farm or the clubhouse, depending on where they were located.
Yeah, I also think it's kind of crazy that that Tappet has this reputation of creating kind of fiery offspring, headstrong, maybe aggressive types. But his success in the most stamina needed race in American racing is like none other, and I think that's pretty crazy. You would think that horses that have that maybe it's an unfair character trait that I think they get assigned to them, for them to be able to carry their brilliance a mile and a half, I think is pretty impressive.
There's no doubt about it. Let's talk about the race itself. Obviously, what I thought was an unsustainably fast pace set by Hot Rod Charlie. Was amazed to see him hanging around at the end. I know now Craig Milkowski has written about how their algorithm works and that some of the internal quarters were slowed down, but I don't care. For me, and having been in this position, running races and knowing how hard it is to recover after you set out too fast in any kind of race. I mean, for me, and for some strange reason, this has become a weird back and forth thing on social media, and we'll get to that in a minute. But for me, there's no question in my mind that Hot Rod Charlie ran the better race than Essential Quality, despite just going down a length and a quarter in the end or whatever it was. And I find myself, just as much as I said I thought Essential Quality was best in the Derby, I'm super comfortable saying Hot Rod Charlie was best here, and I might evaluate them that way going forward. What's your opinion?
No, I mean, look, I'm not going to argue or fight with someone who says that Hot Rod Charlie ran the better race. He was on the front end, but Essential Quality was not that far back. So if the pace was fast, it's not like Essential Quality got a setup sitting way off of it. He was close enough to the pace. I mean, they both ran extremely well. If someone told me that Hot Rod Charlie hung or something like that, I would maybe fight them about that. But I don't. But if someone wanted to say that Hot Rod Charlie ran the better race, whatever, good for them. I think Essential Quality ran pretty damn good too, considering that he wasn't really too far out of it. I think they both ran extremely well. And they were both 11 clear, 12 clear of Rombauer. So I think they both ran really well, and I think that Hot Rod Charlie deserves a lot of credit, but I think Essential Quality does as well.
I'm not trying to take anything away from him. I mean, it was bang bang, and it's not like, oh, he's some mug. I mean, the horse ran incredibly huge, but that first quarter, which was really the one that shocked me, Essential Quality was 7 lengths off, and as it began to slow down, he began to grind in. I just think he ran. I think it's just safe to say that he ran more efficiently. And again, it's not to me like it's going to depend on pace scenarios and a lot of other things who I would back going forward. But I don't know why it became like sort of I think it's one of these things where so many people said what my thought was early that then the inevitable backlash happens on social media with all these people, and then unfortunately, in the realm of social media, and this is not your fault at all. I'm not trying to impugn you, but of course, like the backlashers take it way too far. What do you mean? He hit the wire. He won the race, so he was best. And it got into this really like irritating, like reductive thinking, which if you try to take to the windows as a horse player, I can guarantee you're going to get your doors blown off.
Yeah, look, I mean, you don't. I think you just look at it objectively and take it for what it is. I don't think you don't have to be on either side. They both ran well.
Yeah.
You know, there's examples when it's clear, and it's very clear who ran the better race. And I think this is just one of those situations where I wouldn't, if someone tried to convince me of it was essential quality, okay, that's fine too. Hot Rod Charlie ran well. I will say that Essential Quality did what we thought he would do. He just kind of grinded. He was going to go out there and grind around there. And when the other one starts slowing down, he wasn't going to be slowing down. And I also, to be contrarian, we often talk on this show about how we'll talk, I'm sure, about Knicks Go. Going faster sometimes is your edge. I can make the argument that if Hot Rod Charlie goes 48 and 48 to the half, that he isn't as close. He just gets grinded by even worse. And his only shot to be as close as he was to go as fast as he did. I could make that argument. And so, people just like to argue about stuff on Twitter, I think.
I think you're probably right. But we'll see. I think they're going to take divergent paths for at least a minute. It sounds like Essential Quality is Travers bound, maybe with a prep, maybe not. And it sounds like Hot Rod Charlie, they were going home and thinking more about the Haskell. That could be very interesting to see Hot Rod Charlie and Mandaloon tangle in a race like that. If you were consulted, JK, about next targets for each horse, what would you say?
Well, you and I have had this conversation privately, I think, or maybe we did it on the show. I can't remember, but rank the 3-year-old races with, Derby, Preakness, Belmont, Travers, Haskell. Rank them. I think for both of us, the Travers was either 1 or 2. So where my argument would go as a fan and as a historian, I would prefer win the Travers. Nothing against the Preakness or the Belmont or even the Haskell, but that's where my goal would be.
Yeah. So maybe who knows? A rerouting could certainly happen, and we could see everybody tangle.
Sorry, Pete. The spacing is different now between the Haskell and the Travers. So there's a world in which you can do both.
Yeah, that's true too. And Hot Rod Charlie certainly seems to thrive for his racing, so he's got that club in his bag as well. Earliest gut feeling: Mandaloon or Hot Rod Charlie in a race like the Haskell. What would you say?
Well, I think with the newfound aggression with Hot Rod Charlie, and we'd heard it a couple of different places that maybe Hot Rod Charlie's better on the front end. It's how he won the Louisiana Derby. It's how he almost won the Belmont. So I think that style, going 1 1/8 miles at Monmouth, and I'm also a believer that being on the front end with the whip rules is probably better than coming from off of it. I think that's he has an edge there over a horse like Mandaloon, but I wouldn't be shocked either way.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out. Speaking of Monmouth, I'm going to be down there Friday and Saturday. I'm going to do Horse Players Happy Hour, which resumes this week on its new day on Friday at Monmouth. I'm going to do it apparently from the Monmouth Library, which I'm looking forward to seeing amidst all those old stud books and whatever other dusties they have up there. I'm going to probably be perusing at some point. But it's going to be fun because then they've got the Sunset Racing. I'm going to stick around for those 6 races. And then Saturday, of course, is the Pick Your Prize contest. You can go to the Monmouth Park website or reach out to Brian Skirka directly for information on that. But annually, for me, a terrific opportunity for contest players, a chance to play very sensibly. Probably for me, the best place to get qualified for the National Horse Players Championship for those who are thinking about it. So come on out and please say hi and let us know that you're a listener if you do. That was one of the funnest things for me, and I would imagine it happened to you too, JK, just walking around Belmont Park last Saturday, was getting to meet so many listeners. Always appreciate it when folks come up and say hi and tell us they enjoy what's going on the network. Did you see a few of those?
I did. That was definitely a really cool part about it. I was that person at one time. I love showing Lafitte this picture of me like fanboying his dad. Yeah, no, it's always cool to see people that listen to the show and watch the show. And it was fun. It was really fun to be back at Belmont. It got me really even more excited. I don't think that was possible, but to get more excited about Saratoga.
Let's, before we move on from the Belmont Stakes, talk about Rombauer and his performance, which wasn't what some were expecting for him. One thing I noticed, again, from that unique vantage point where I was he got very keyed up, like during his warm-up. It was like fighting for his head, and it made me wonder if that didn't tell on him a little bit. Not that he ran a bad race to be third in a Triple Crown race coming back in 3 weeks, and the figure regressed, but not like crazy. I was just curious what you thought about Rombauer and what his future might be. I certainly didn't see an excuse in the running, and I know he did supposedly get keyed up a bit before the Preakness, but this looked like maybe exerting himself at the wrong time, a little too close to the race when he was already in running mode.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think coming back off of 3 weeks off one of your biggest performances isn't always the easiest thing in the world, especially when you're running into two horses that were coming in off of 5 weeks. So I think that had something to do with his performance. I also think that, Michael McCarthy had explained and expressed that he was a little bit concerned about how wound up Rombauer got on the turf course at Pimlico before the Preakness, and was very worried and hopeful that wasn't going to be an issue in the Belmont. And it sounds like he was pretty behaved in the paddock, maybe a little bit antsy, and then obviously when he got on the racetrack showed a little bit more. Do I think that was the reason for the 11 lengths? No, I don't think that was the reason for the 11 lengths, but did it affect him to a certain extent? I would imagine so. So, he'll go on to fight another day, and a horse that I think will continue to kind of improve. He's a small horse, so maybe there's still some growing to be had there. And I don't think anyone on our airwaves needs me to explain how much I admire Michael McCarthy as a trainer, and I expect he'll continue to progress. He's
certainly in the right hands to keep getting better. That's for absolutely sure. And I think, if you just believe in the clock, even his A race, he's closer. It's not 11 lengths, but it's not, and it's hard to point him improving enough again to run the kind of figures that those guys did up at the top of the frame there in this year's Belmont Stakes. Let's back up, JK, and talk about the Manhattan, where for me, domestic spending, yes, he got a setup, but boy, he was very, very good. Covered a whole lot of ground, ends up coming back 127 on the time form US scale in a race coded red throughout. To be as far back as he was turning in and to win as easily as he did, this was a grade one performance from a horse who I can start seeing it if people are starting to expect some or get some bricks and mortar 2.0 vibes.
Yeah, the thing is, I almost feel like he has more to offer, at least visually, than bricks and mortar did. Bricks was always just kind of grindy. Looked like he was going to get beat. He just kept kind of winning. It feels like domestic spending has that an ability to kind of get himself out of bad situations more than Bricks. And maybe that's not fair. And I'm not saying that he's better than Bricks. He has to prove that. I'm just saying he feels like a horse that has a bigger turn of foot that can do more things. We'll see. The time will tell about that. Look, all I can say when I look at these races over and over again is how good the 3-year-olds were last year on the turf, and how they've progressed, with Gufo running third in here, Colonel Liam having the great start to the year, didn't run well here. And then domestic spending. This is a fun division where sometimes this division can get a little bit like only one horse wins, and then if he doesn't win, some horse you never could have found wins. It's like it can be kind of a weirder division. But this domestic spending and Colonel Liam and Gufo, and they've really set us up for a fun rest of the year. I think I'd imagine they'll all trade punches moving forward. Colonel Liam, I think, deserves a conversation like we talked about before. At one point he was the de facto leader in the clubhouse in this division. He didn't run particularly well. And I don't know if it was the 1.25 miles. I don't think it was. I'd hate to say that it was Irad, as if Irad being off made that big of a difference for a talented horse like him.
Can't be that big a difference.
No, I just think maybe for whatever reason it wasn't his day. Something about the ground, something about the distance that he just didn't appreciate. But
He's run a lot
I'd
of big
imagine,
races. He's run a lot of
yeah.
big races this year. So the idea that, he might be just a hair over the top and need some time and be able to come back in the fall, grown up a bit more as a factor, wouldn't surprise me one bit.
No, and then it's not, and he wasn't really too close to the pace that was honest. He was kind of in a good spot, to be fair. So we'll see what happens with him.
His pace figure was actually massive early. His line on Timeform US 163, 145, 132, 114. So I think you can maybe argue that it was a little bit inefficient based on compared to what his biggest runs were. But I think it just seemed like he just wasn't showing his form, to go away that tamely, especially given what the horse who was cutting out those insane fractions did. We'll get to him in a minute if you have another thought on Colonel Liam.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to seeing him run moving forward. I mean, like I said, all the whole division is a cool division, and for once, I would think that the Breeders' Cup Turf, it could be a home team game this year. It could be. We'll see what happens. It could be a home team game. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Bricks and Mortar won it, and you're saying you like domestic spending more than him. So there you go. I mean, that tells you all you need to know. Let's give Tribhuvan his props, though, JK. This was one I know Matt Bernier loved. He made the case very eloquently over on Horse Players Happy Hour, now on Fridays. All proceeds go to charity. Join us for our live stream. This horse, and Matt Bernier gives out 10-1 winners like I give out candy on Halloween, another reason to watch. But this horse was awesome, I thought. He just opened up. This was the kind of ride that I know you and I like to see, that we feel like we don't see enough in turf racing in the United States, especially not in New York. And he almost, for a minute there, looked like he was going to pull it off and get the big brass ring. I'm hoping this one hangs around in this division all year, and I hope he keeps this running style, because I'd like to see some truly run turf races. This is a cool horse.
Yeah, for sure. Look, it's one of my favorite things is forward turf horses, and it's the best way to give this horse a chance. If you take him back and you try to close with horses like Gufo with domestic spending, it's not gonna happen. So even from like an ownership standpoint, if I owned a horse with Chad and he said, I'm sending your horse to the front, and I knew I was the third or fourth best horse he had, okay, that's fine, Chad, whatever you want to do. There's no reason to take him back and try to close with those other horses.
I'm very curious to see what happens going forward. But I assume you were very pleased with the Cancel ride there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Eric, and I love the fact that Eric's getting an opportunity to ride some horses in Grade 1 races for Chad. That's big for him, and obviously he's not on the best one, and obviously he's got the directions to kind of go out there and potentially set it up for the team, and if he can't do it for himself. So it's better than nothing, I would imagine.
Chad Brown exacta in this year's Manhattan. Let's back up to the Met Mile. More success for the In the Money team, with Nick Tamaro telling everybody all week how big Silver State was going to run. He gets the job done with a 118 on the Timeform scale. But for me, the story of the race is who didn't show up, and that was your big favorite, Knicks Go. I've heard a lot of theories, JK. One of them got blown out of the window. Blown out of the window? I guess that works. Blown out of the water, I think is what I meant to say. An hour and a half later, I suppose, when Essential Quality won. But there was a lot of talk about a negative fluctuation in form for the Brad Cox barn. There was a lot of talk about 2 turns versus 1. I was just sorely disappointed with the effort. I'll let you give your preferred theory of what went wrong here.
Yeah, look, I don't care what anyone says. I will long believe that you can't ride a horse like Knicks Go 23 and change, 46 and change. That's not his thing. That's not why he's so dangerous. He's the type of horse you go out there, you go 22 and change, you go 44 and change, and you run them all off their feet, because when they're going to get sucked along fast too. And when you invite him into the race, it's over. And I don't know if we watched it together, Pete. It might have been me or you, or maybe it was Doogie I was standing with. When they were on the backside and I saw the fraction, it said 46. I told Doogie he won't win. He's done.
It ended up being right.
And that's not his thing. That's not how he's going to run well. I don't think it's a 2-turn, 1-turn thing. Maybe he's better going 2 because he can slow down a little bit while still running fast and kind of suck everyone along. The horse just needs to rock. He needs to rock and roll. I'd love to see him all out going 7 furlongs in one of those grade 1s at Saratoga. I'd love to see him in the Whitney going all out, going 46 to the half. I don't care where he is. I just want him running fast the entire time. And that's where he has the best chance of winning.
I totally get it. He went away so tamely for me, though, that I wonder if it might also be something else. I think I'm going to be hesitant to back him if he comes back in anything resembling this form cycle. I think I'm going to want time from him. But you sound like you'd back him right away. Like you're not concerned by the fact that he didn't even hit the board against a super subpar Met Mile field.
I'd bet him in his next race if Kendrick was on him. Get well soon, Kendrick.
Yeah, get well soon, KC.
No, I mean, and that's no offense to Joel. I think Joel's a brilliant rider, and look, I get
Joel
how that
saved something though, right? I mean, isn't he known for saving something?
Yeah,
Kendrick is known for letting it all hang out. I think that's what you.
Yeah, but Joel has let it all hang out before, just in that situation. I get it. All I'm saying is that when you invite horses like Silver State, By My Standards, and Mischievous Alex into the race, you invite them into the race. Things will not go well for you at the end. They're too good. They're talented horses. Against a bad bunch of horses, yeah, maybe you could pull that off with a horse like Knicks Go. So it's not that I feel like he spit the bit. I just feel like that's not his game. He needs to be open links before those things happen. So I predict he'll run back and run well and show us his old form. I just think that this was a mistake in tactics.
To clarify my opinion about Joel, I love him on the front end with a horse that can finish, but because he always does seem to try to save at least a little something. I can't think of him on just like a pure speed ride, gut everybody else hang on. I'm sure there are examples that I'm not thinking of. I don't think of him that way though.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Dr. Post, disappointment of the race, had a very rough go of things early on. I haven't read anything. I hope he can get back to some of the promise that he's shown. And Silver State, I mean, we shouldn't give short shrift to him. What a terrific performance. What a horse who has a nose for the wire. Training job by Steve Asmussen, winning this race 3 out of 4 years. Clearly can identify a horse who can excel over the 1-turn mile configuration. Any thoughts for you, JK, about any of the other runners in the Grade 1 Met Mile?
No, Silver State's just one of those horses that it's, we all, as horse players, we all have that kind of stubbornness about us when it comes to certain horses that no matter how cool they are and how many cool things they do, we just still kind of want to fade them all the time. That's Silver State for me. I have no idea why. The poor thing doesn't deserve it. But every time he runs, I feel like I can beat him, and I'm going to keep trying to beat him. So
he's not the poor thing. I think it's poor Jonathan Kinchin for getting sand kicked in his face every time.
Swiss Skydiver is the same way for me, but I was going to bet her this weekend. So that, anyways, but yeah, he when you win that many races in a row, good races in a row against good horses, it's definitely an accomplishment.
Speed round for the Just a Game. Folks who listen to the Pro Player Roundtable, so there were apparently enough of them that the Exacta only paid $49. Sean and Paul all over this one. And I had said nice things on our preview show about Althequa with the scratch of Blowout. Summer Romance ended up a big move up. A race that did nothing to diminish our idea, JK, about turf form shipping west. Do you have a quick thought on it?
Yeah, this was just one of those situations for me where, I don't watch European racing enough to make my own decisions about it. I have to gather information and then process it and go. And I started listening to this is a serious story too. I started listening to the Players Roundtable and I put it on 1.5. And then Sean said something funny. Sean he's a dirty sense of humor. He said something that I knew he smiled when he said it. So I called him to make fun of him about it. And then I never went back to listen to it.
That was a costly phone call. As much as the line at Chick-fil-A helped you call Sean to give you the horse glass slippers in the Breeders' Cup betting challenge. This time he hurt you. But, you could have just listened to me when we did our show on Wednesday, JK.
I know. And then I talked to some of our other friends. Anyways, long story short, I was somewhere else here. And I think the reason, just aside, I think the reason that exacta paid the way it did is because I do believe, and I don't mean this to be disparaging to anyone that hit it. I do think that there's a world in which some people said, "Oh, I'm just going to box the Euros,"
right? Not knowing why. It's like,
just going to box the Euros.
You're kind of wishing her, sir. I mean, this is the snobbiest thing I'll ever say on these airwaves, but sometimes you wish when people cash, they had to be cashing for the right reasons.
yeah, of course. I mean, good if you box the Euros, congratulations. I'm really not being ugly, but I think that's probably why it paid so little. Another thing that I learned, like with Paul Matisse one day, there was like a 2-1-3 trifecta that came back at Saratoga, and it was really light. And he said, "Oh, that's just the 1-2-3. Like those are always over bet."
Yeah.
Because people just box 1-2-3.
You used to be able to find more stuff like that, and fading. It would kill you with Chad Brown, but fading trainer exactas, fading jockey doubles. Things like that. I think when there was more casual money, that used to be a thing. We've only got a couple more minutes though, so I want to at least hustle through the Phipps. You mentioned the scratch of Swiss Skydiver. I didn't give Letruska enough credit, JK. She went out there and blitzed them. 127 on the time form scale. Bonnie South second. She dares the devil back in third. What were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this is a pretty quick one, honestly. I didn't think she would be loose. She Dares the Devil was in front of her a couple races back. I thought She Dares the Devil would be ridden aggressively to either press her or be in front of her. And she just went out there, she opened up, and she was trouble. I know that part of that conversation about Brad Cox being cold was because She Dares the Devil didn't run that well, but She Dares the Devil was never going to really beat Letruska if she got loose. And Bonnie South ran pretty good. So and I didn't like Caddo River, which I'm sure we'll get to. So I wasn't really on that Brad Cox train yet, that he wasn't running well. So Letruska's good, man. And when you can do what she does, getting out there on the front end and putting people away, and she showed some heart and the apple blossom, and good for Jose picking up and defending the Ortiz honor in that spot. So which he did a handful of times on the day. She was a good performance by her.
Amazing how many of the IRAD off due to injury horses won. And this isn't to take anything away from him. I always put on my top short list of my 3 favorite riders, people I want on my side when the money's down. But his agent must have been feeling pretty good at the end of the day, just in terms of, well, maybe bittersweet, right?
I think it was the first 3 races he won that he would have won. And then Letruska, and then maybe I'm forgetting another one, but it was
not bad.
Not a bad situation
by agent. Okay, let's talk about the Jaipur Grade 1 turf sprinting. Something for all the turf sprinting we have. We don't have a whole lot at the Grade 1 level. Bill Mott says, "Hey, Chad Brown, I can do that too." He goes 1-2 with Casa Creed and Chewing Gum. Casa Creed getting the money at 10-1. Some nice shouts for him around the network. 120 on the time form US scale. Any takeaways from this race?
I just thought it was going to be too sharp, and he was going to have too much to do against too many good horses. And at the 8th pole, you could tell, and then at the 16th pole, it was over. He wasn't even in front yet, but it was over. He was flying on the outside. So I was definitely happy for our buddy Lee Einseidler as well. He's personally had a tough year, and so to see him get this big Grade 1 performance with these horses, he gets really happy, very invested in his horses. So I was happy for him, although my 2-day pick 6 was defeated. I was happy for him.
Bound for Nowhere, I guess one could say, is the disappointment of the race. Had pretty much had the run of things up front at even money under Rosario. Did you think this was a case maybe of not being aggressive enough? I mean, on the clock, it was pretty fast. 22:06, 44, 55.
I played doubles and tossed him. So I would, I was trying to beat the horse. I just didn't. I don't think he's the same horse. I don't think he wants to win a Grade 1 going 6. I didn't think that he had to necessarily make the lead, although he did. So I'm the wrong person to ask because I kind of didn't expect him to run that well.
Search Results wins the Acorn 114 on the time form US scale, giving a form boost to that Oaks. I mean, she was expected to win, and she did. I was a little bit disappointed by the complete non-finish of Day Out of the Office. for whom it appeared just looked kind of like a non-stayer kind of thing, I guess. Quick thought on this one.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what they do with search results. I know I'm sure our friend Matt Bernier is on his show talking about her not switching leads. I know he always pays attention to that. I mean, I don't think you can go wrong with her. You can take the test route, but it feels like I would guess they'll go Coaching Club American Oaks try. If she wins the mile and eighth race, then great. And then cut her back for the test. We'll see how that works. But, I think she'll have a big race with her name on it at Saratoga.
Grade 2 action in the Brooklyn race that I love being back on this card, if only for the perspective it gives us in terms of speed figures. Am I being a jerk to call Lone Rock a they knew horse? This horse got hammered at the windows all the way, and then ran like instead of 3-1, he could have been 1-3 for Diodoro. Pasted the field.
In Paris, very impressive. He just kicked away like he was in a turf race, And he really likes these distances, these longer distances. He's rattled off a couple of wins. I'd imagine we'll see him at Saratoga going long somewhere. And I believe it's the Birdstone we always see there. So yeah, cool horse, man. You got to love horses that can go out there and just keep laying it down like that. I do want to give myself a pat on the back. I picked Campaign on the show after Andy made fun of me and not picking any 15-1 shots, and he did run fourth. So I was like sweating that out. I was sitting there with Leduca, and I was like, Paulie, tell me I ran fourth with this horse. Come on, tell me I ran fourth.
It's amazing the things we root for and the different reasons we do them. Were you surprised by Lone Rock? I mean, obviously, we're surprised he won like that, but would he have been an A for you in the race? Okay.
No, he was absolutely an A. If you run well at a mile and a half with fast figures, then in those big races, I don't typically take stands in these mile and a half races and single horses. It's more of a kind of spread who can beat me type of thing in there, and try to connect it with some other opinions.
I just had a double win situation with Tiz Magician and Moretti, and I'm not going to complain about running second and third when it happened by 11 lengths. But yeah, I just got that one super wrong. Let's talk about the Woody Stevens back to grade 1 action and Drain the Clock impressing me with this win. Big number, real big number, Timeform US, and as much of a difference as you'll ever see between the Timeform US speed rating, which came back at 116, and the actual Timeform US like figure rating, form rating, whatever you want to call it, 127. Jackie's Warrior upgraded to a 129 for throwing down those wild splits. Oh, well, ask it this way. Who was better in the Woody Stevens, Drain the Clock or Jackie's Warrior?
Yeah, so I said I wouldn't fight someone over saying that Hot Rod Charlie was better, right? Okay, whatever. If someone tried to tell me that Jackie's Warrior wasn't best in this race, that could result in fisticuffs. He broke slow as a horse who always basically needs or makes the lead, and then rushed up. There was that hidden fraction. Yes, him and Drain the Clock were close at that first call, but he spotted him 3 lengths and then made it up. I thought that Jackie's Warrior was unbelievable in that race, and it's too bad that he got beat. And if anyone wants to do a head-to-head for the Alan Jerkins now, at UT Big Hair on Twitter.
His DMs are open, people. Actually, I'm hoping your DMs aren't open, but
they are. They are. I actually need to look at them.
Well, reach out to him quickly. I'll pass along any messages over at inthemoneypodcast.com if there's anybody. If Sappy Joseph is listening and wants to make JK put his money where his mouth is, believe me, he will. I can attest to that from personal experience. Good stuff, JK. That's, all right. Well, a couple other quick notes on this, and then we'll wrap it. So, Caddo River, Arkansas Derby, looking like some of the worst form you could produce coming out of that race. What happens with him? Time off and cutback?
No, I don't think I don't think he was a cutback type. I think that he's a horse that needs to be loose in mile and an eighth races. Like
time off and stretch out.
Yeah, I just Brad will make good decisions with him, but Brad's got a whole bunch of darn good 3-year-olds. I don't know what he's going to do. He's got Caddo River, who I still think is a talented racehorse, Mandaloon, Essential Quality, and then the horse that freaked in the Matt Win. I can't remember his name. I'm going blank on it. But anyways, the Juddmonte horse that won the Matt Win. I can't remember. Anyways, He's got a lot of good horses he's got to dodge. I think Cattle River's got some nice races, he'll be able to pull off. He just needs to be forward. I never was really buying the fact that he was going to somehow stay close to Jackie's Warrior in this race and run by him. I just didn't think that was going to happen.
Folsom? Is Folsom the horse?
Folsom, that's the one. Yeah. There you go.
So you got that. And then Dream Shake suffered that bump at the break, ran terrific internal fractions, flattens out late. What does this horse want to do?
I don't know. I actually ran into Ryan Exline after the race, and he was just kind of puzzled as well, like, what to do next. Obviously get him home and just kind of see where he wants to go and what he wants to do. He ran so well in the Pat Day Mile. You got a good horse. So you just got to figure out
badly here. I mean, when you look at it objectively and you recognize how well the top two ran and the trouble.
Yeah, I think that I don't think he wants to sprint. I just think that maybe he wasn't quite ready for the two-turn monsters early in his career. But I think maybe now, as he progresses, he can maybe start looking at some of those other opportunities. I could see him running in a race like the Shared Belief, right? That 3-year-old dirt race at Del Mar this summer, and then him winning that impressively, and then next thing you know, he shows up in a nice race and does well there, and then he's in the Breeders' Cup now. It's one of those deals where maybe later in the summer will be his time to shine.
I strongly believe that he's just better than his bare form suggests, going all the way back to, really running and trying to take on Life is Good, who still has some of the fastest figures that any of its generation have run. No shame there. There's a lot of excuses, and he's run into some really good horses. Very curious to see where he goes next. I kind of like the stretch back out idea, just for all the opportunities that are going to be afforded to him there, and maybe not needing to knock heads with Jackie's Warrior again, who seems to have his number. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that. That's our thoughts on all of these Belmont Day Stakes. Thank you, JK, for making the time. We're going to do a little bit more recapping of Belmont Day later in the week. Going to have Sean Borman on to talk about the Pick 6 on Saturday at Belmont, and we'll spend at least 15 minutes there. I know he has a whole bunch of pace theory thoughts that he wants to share. I want to give him a chance to air those and maybe make some dirty jokes that only JK will get, that then he'll call him on his cell phone about.
Speaking of Pick 6, there's a carryover on Thursday at Belmont.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Jeez, how'd I miss that?
I think 69,000. It happened on Sunday.
Oh, goodness gracious. All right, we'll call them, and maybe we should do a show. It could be fun. See what's going on as far as that goes. Production meeting in the middle of the show. Got to let you go, JK. Thank you so much for your contributions. Thank you so much as well to producer Craig Gorbanoff, DJ Unstable himself, pushing all the right buttons there in the control room. Our partners over at Monmouth Park, come join us for Pick Your Prize. Our founding partners, Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation and 10 Strike Racing. Great to see Marshall Graham. Congrats on his latest tournament success. And we always like to root for the purple and black. Most of all, though, I want to thank all of you, the listeners, the viewers, the people who come up to us at racetracks, for making these shows so much fun to do. This show's been a production of In the Money Media. Our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kinchin. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatal. May you win all your photos.